Welcome to the Bond Report Podcast with your host, Norm Bond.
And this is Norm Bond, and I do want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the Bond Report. If you are someone who is a first-time listener, thank you so much for taking the time to click in, hear what we're going to be sharing on this episode. And of course, for my repeat listeners, those of you who have been following my content for many years, I really want to thank you for continuing to listen, to engage, to share the information. And I really, value your time and your commitment on the multiple platforms and things that I've done across, multiple years in terms of digital marketing. Because that's what the show is all about, right? It's all about how do we apply digital tools in a way that we can grow our businesses, that we can expand our careers, and that we can push the various brands and services and really passion. I talk in some of my earlier episodes about people who want to change the world. Those of us who are, passionate about things that we see and that we value. We have different audiences, and that's really what drives me to continue to share the information that I've learned during my 30-plus year career as a marketer. I'm someone who has sold multi-million-dollar computers in terms of hardware. I've sold software. Of course, I've been an entrepreneur and still am an entrepreneur, but across multiple platforms, from traditional media in terms of print magazines, all the way up to digital things now with podcasts and email marketing and various digital tools. So I get very excited about the idea and the power really of digital marketing tools. And what is really amazing today is the way these tools can help you level the playing field. If you're someone who, is a solopreneur today, you have such power in the palm of your hand with your mobile phone or your laptop or your tablet. You have an ability to compete. But what stops a lot of people is they feel overwhelmed by technology. They're running their business and they're not a technologist. They don't have time to post all the time on social media. They can't keep up with the speed at which these things change. And I understand that, and that's what I share, tools to address those types of situations through the Bond Report. This particular episode, we're going to talk a lot today about AI and ChatGPT and what it means for this audience, because you need to be talking about it. We know that ChatGPT expanded and jumped on the scene in November of 2022. But as we come now into the first Black Friday season since the introduction of ChatGPT and multiple now other generative AI tools, other machine learning tools, and the expansion of the capabilities and the ways that you can interact with these various tools, I see it as a game changer. And that's not a word that I really, use and take lightly because, again, I've been in tech for a long time. So I've seen a lot of different things, everything from Windows to mobile phones. I've seen a lot happen, but I got to tell you, as someone who's been in this space, where we are now, it's at another level.
AI adoption could hit 20% over the next 3 years, a $150 billion spending opportunity, Morgan Stanley said. American workers' wariness of AI is merited. The technology, which already affects a quarter of the jobs market, with an economic impact of $2.1 trillion, is expected to soar to $4.1 trillion, impacting 44% of labor over the next few years. The rise of generative AI will automate tasks, revolutionize the way companies accumulate and analyze data, and radically change input tasks. We see generative AI expanding the scope of business processes that can be automated, Morgan Stanley analyst Brian Novak wrote. At the same time, the input costs supporting Gen AI functionality are rapidly falling, enabling a strongly expansionary impact to software production. As a result, generative AI is set to impact the labor markets, expand the enterprise software, total addressable market, and drive incremental spend for public cloud services. Morgan Stanley's projections reflect a prodigious run for AI-related stocks such as NVIDIA Corporation, Symbotic Incorporated, and C3.ai Incorporated. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley anticipates a significant revenue boost for software companies that adopt AI. It projects software vendors could claim as much as 5% of the $4.1 trillion labor impact, a total addressable market of $205 billion.
This is a really big deal, not only for the tech space, but for local business owners and entrepreneurs. If you have a pizza shop, if you are someone who's in HVAC, if you are a dentist, if you are any type of local business owner, if you are someone who's trying to advance your career, if you're a boomer, if you are a Gen Z, it doesn't really matter. All of us need to be full hands on deck around AI, and not that you need to become a coder and a programmer, but you need to understand at a minimum level what's going on with these various tools, because they already are impacting you right now.
It's the Bond Report Podcast with your hosts, Norm Bond. Guests, solutions, insights. Get connected now.
Because that's what the show is all about, right? It's all about how do we apply digital tools in a way that we can grow our businesses, that we can expand our careers, and that we can push the various brands and services and really passion. You know, I talk in some of my earlier episodes about people who want to change the world. You know, those of us who are, passionate about things that we see and that we value. We have different audiences, and that's really what drives me to continue to share the information that I've learned during my 30-plus year career as a marketer. You know, I'm someone who has sold multi-million-dollar computers in terms of hardware. I've sold software. Of course, I've been an entrepreneur and still am an entrepreneur, but across multiple platforms, from traditional media in terms of print magazines, all the way up to digital things now with podcasts and email marketing and various digital tools. So I get very excited about the idea and and the power really of digital marketing tools. And what is really amazing today is the way these tools can help you level the playing field. If you're someone who, is a solopreneur today, you have such power in the palm of your hand with your mobile phone or your laptop or your tablet. You have an ability to compete. But what stops a lot of people is they feel overwhelmed by technology. They're running their business and they're not a technologist. They don't have time to post all the time on social media. They can't keep up with the speed at which these things change.
When I think about the rise of AI, I'm reminded by the rise of literacy. A few hundred years ago, many people in society thought that maybe not everyone needed to be able to read and write. Back then, many people were tending fields or herding sheep, so maybe there was less need for written communication. And all that was needed was for the high priests and priestesses and monks to be able to read the holy book. And the rest of us could just go to the temple or church or the holy building and sit and listen to the high priests and priestesses read to us. Fortunately, we've since figured out that we can build a much richer society if lots of people can read and write. Today, AI is in the hands of the high priests and priestesses. These are the highly skilled AI engineers, many of whom work in the big tech companies. And most people have access only to the AI that they build for them. I think that we can build a much richer society if we can enable everyone to help to write the future. But why is AI largely concentrated in the big tech companies? Because many of these AI projects have been expensive to build. They may require dozens of highly skilled engineers, and it may cost millions or tens of millions of dollars to build an AI system. And the large tech companies, particularly the ones with hundreds of millions or even billions of users, have been better than anyone else at making these investments pay off, because for them, a one-size-fits-all AI system, such as one that improves web search or that recommends better products for online shopping, can be applied to this very large numbers of users to generate a massive amount of revenue. But this recipe for AI does not work once you go outside the tech and internet sectors to other places where, for the most part, there are hardly any projects to apply to 100 million people or that generates comparable economics. Let me illustrate with an example. Many weekends, I drive a few minutes from my house to a local pizza store to buy a slice of Hawaiian pizza from the gentleman that owns his pizza store. And his pizza's great, but he always has a lot of cold pizza sitting around, and every weekend some different flavor of pizza is out of stock. But when I watch him operate his store, I get excited because by selling pizza, he is generating data, and this is data that he can take advantage of if he had access to AI. AI systems are good at spotting patterns when given access to the right data, and perhaps an AI system could spot if Mediterranean pizzas sell really well on a Friday night, maybe could suggest to him to make more of it on a Friday afternoon. Now you might say to me, hey Andrew, this is a small pizza store, what's the big deal? And I say to the gentleman that owns this pizza store, something that could help him improve his revenues by a few $1,000s a year, that will be a huge deal to him. I know that there is a lot of hype about AI's need for massive data sets, and having more data does help. But contrary to the hype, AI can often work just fine even on modest amounts of data, such as the data generated by a single pizza store. So the real problem is not that there isn't enough data from the pizza store. The real problem is that the small pizza store could never serve enough customers to justify the cost of hiring an AI team. I know that in the United States, there are about 500,000 independent restaurants, and collectively, these restaurants do serve tens of millions of customers, but every restaurant is different, with a different menu, different customers, different ways of recording sales, that no one-size-fits-all AI will work for all of them. What would it be like if we could enable small businesses, and especially local businesses, to use AI? Let's take a look at what it might look like at a company that makes and sells t-shirts. I would love if an accountant working for the t-shirt company can use AI for demand forecasting. Say, figure out what funny memes to print on t-shirts that would drive sales by looking at what's trending on social media. Or for product placement, why can't a front of store manager take pictures of what the store looks like and show it to an AI and have an AI recommend where to place products to improve sales? Supply chain, can an AI recommend to a buyer whether or not they should pay $20 per yard for a piece of fabric now, or if they should keep looking because they might be able to find it cheaper elsewhere? Or quality control, a quality inspector should be able to use AI to automatically scan pictures of the fabric being used to make t-shirts to check if there are any tears or discolorations in the cloth. Today, large tech companies routinely use AI to solve problems like these and to great effect. But a typical t-shirt company or a typical auto mechanic or retailer or school or local farm will be using AI for exactly 0 of these applications today. Every t-shirt maker is sufficiently different from every other t-shirt maker that there is no one-size-fits-all AI that will work for all of them. And in fact, once you go outside the internet and tech sectors, in other industries, even large companies, such as the pharmaceutical companies, the car makers, the hospitals, also struggle with this. This is the long tail problem of AI. If you were to take all current and potential AI projects and sort them in decreasing order of value and plot them, you get a graph that looks like this. Maybe the single most valuable AI system is something that decides what ads to show people on the internet. Maybe the second most valuable is a web search engine. Maybe the third most valuable is an online shopping product recommendation system. But when you go to the right of this curve, you then get projects like t-shirt product placements or t-shirt demand forecasting or pizzeria demand forecasting. And each of these is a unique project that needs to be custom built. Even t-shirt demand forecasting, if it depends on trending memes on social media, is a very different project than pizzeria demand forecasting, if that depends on the pizzeria sales data. So today, there are millions of projects sitting on the tail of this distribution that no one is working on, but whose aggregate value is massive. So how can we enable small businesses and individuals to build AI systems that matter to them? For most of the last few decades, if you want to build an AI system, this is what you have to do. You have to write pages and pages of code. And while I would love for everyone to learn to code, and in fact, online education and also offline education are helping more people than ever learn to code, unfortunately, not everyone has the time to do this. But there is an emerging new way to build AI systems that will let more people participate. Just as pen and paper, which are a vastly superior technology to stone, tablet, and chisel, were instrumental to widespread literacy, there are emerging new AI development platforms that shift the focus from asking you to write lots of code to asking you to focus on providing data, and this turns out to be much easier for a lot of people to do. Today, there are multiple companies working on platforms like these. Let me illustrate a few of the concepts using one that my team has been building. Take the example of an inspector wanting AI to help detect defects in fabric. An inspector can take pictures of the fabric and upload it to a platform like this, and they can go in to show the AI what tears in the fabric looks like by drawing rectangles, and they can also go in to show the AI what discolorations on the fabric looks like by drawing rectangles. So these pictures, together with the green and pink rectangles that the inspector's drawn, are data created by the inspector to explain to AI how to find tears and discolorations. After the AI examines this data, we may find that it has seen enough pictures of tears, but not yet enough pictures of discolorations. This is akin to if a junior inspector had learned to reliably spot tears, but still needs to further hone their judgment about discolorations. So the inspector can go back and take more pictures of discolorations to show to the AI to help it deepen its understanding. By adjusting the data you give to the AI, you can help the AI get smarter. So an inspector using an accessible platform like this can, in a few hours to a few days, and with purchasing a suitable camera setup, be able to build a custom AI system to detect defects, tears and discolorations in all the fabric being used to make t-shirts throughout the factory. And once again, you may say, hey, Andrew, this is one factory. Like, why is this a big deal? And I say to you, this is a big deal to that inspector whose life this makes easier. And equally, this type of technology can empower a baker to use AI to check for the quality of the cakes they're making, or an organic farmer to check the quality of the vegetables, or a furniture maker to check the quality of the wood they're using. Platforms like these will probably still need a few more years before they're easy enough to use for every pizzeria owner. But many of these platforms are coming along, and some of them are getting to be quite usable to someone that is tech savvy today with just a bit of training. But what this means is that rather than relying on the high priests and priestesses to write AI systems for everyone else, we can start to empower every accountant, every store manager, every buyer, and every quality inspector to build their own AI systems. I hope that the pizzeria owner and many other small business owners like him will also take advantage of this technology, because AI is creating tremendous wealth and will continue to create tremendous wealth. And it's only by democratizing access to AI that we can ensure that this wealth is spread far and wide across society. Hundreds of years ago, I think hardly anyone understood the impact that widespread literacy will have. Today, I think hardly anyone understands the impact that democratizing access to AI will have. Building AI systems has been out of reach for most people, but that does not have to be the case. In the coming era for AI, we'll empower everyone to build AI systems for themselves, and I think that will be an incredibly exciting future.
Okay, and we just heard from Dr. Andrew Ng. He is a globally recognized leader in AI. He's the founder of Deep Learning AI. He also is the CEO of Landing AI and the co-founder of Coursera. The speech we just heard him deliver is actually from a few years ago. So there have been advances made in the time that has passed, and the sense of urgency now hopefully is greater within you, because a lot of the models that were in development at the time of his speech are now available to you as an entrepreneur, busy business owner, as a professional. So when you look at ChatGPT and some of the other AI learning models that are now available to you, those hundreds of millions of dollars that he spoke about have now been, you're now the beneficiary of being able to apply those to your business just by taking action on the things that you've heard during this podcast. I'm going to give you some additional background because the researchers at Forbes spoke with a number of leading voices in the AI space. And let's hear a little bit about what they found out during their research. Let's listen to the research from Forbes. Here we go.
Generative AI is, in a sense, the second wave of transformative AI that we've experienced over the past few decades. And that first wave was really around ranking systems. And so you're thinking here about Google's search, Facebook, YouTube's recommendations, TikTok. All of this is around choosing sort of the ranking of information that was already created by people. And this seems like a small thing. It's just ranking a set of items. But when you're ranking everything that humanity has created, that actually affects the incentives of politicians, of entertainers, of journalists. You're now restructuring society just by that simple act of ranking, because you're ranking for billions of people every day, all the time. The second wave is where we go beyond ranking to actually generating that content. This second wave of transformative artificial intelligence, we don't know fully what those implications are going to be. The whole way in which we make information and the basis of communication across society, like that is all going to be rewired.
At its simplest, generative AI refers to an AI tool that is generating or creating content. That could be text, audio, or video. You're taking a really large data set and you're inputting a prompt, and then you're outputting something completely new that is learning from all that info and creating something to answer the prompt. We've covered AI for some time at Forbes, but on November 30th, when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, its tool that allows you to, ask for a recipe or a sonnet in the form of Shakespeare, or a script in the form of, Alex as movie star, which my boss did. He also asked it to write an annual performance review for me, which I did not appreciate. When we saw everyone playing with these tools, we thought, okay, AI is really breaking into the mainstream here. It's not just something that the tech bubble cares about. And it's time to ask questions about who's really going to make money here, how real is this hype, and what will be the business impact. OpenAI is a really interesting company. It actually started as a nonprofit. It was backed by Sam Altman, who used to run Y Combinator, as well as the billionaires Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. And it was formed with the idea of creating an artificial general intelligence. This is a real kind of sci-fi AI, one that is conscious, self-learning, that could theoretically rethink capitalism, as Sam Altman has said, or could potentially outstrip human control. Building that AGI was something that OpenAI could not do as a nonprofit. It couldn't raise enough money to do this, so it needed to create a for-profit entity. OpenAI does that in 2019, and that's when Sam Altman becomes CEO full-time. And not long after, we've seen the company become a key ally to Microsoft, which has reportedly invested $10 billion recently at a $29 billion valuation.
This current wave that we're seeing, this generative AI wave, has been kind of building up for the last couple months now, really hitting an inflection point probably summer of 2022. We were slowly seeing these different companies starting to tease out, new releases, like OpenAI launching DALL-E 2 in beta, and then Stability AI announced Stable Diffusion, this text-to-image generation model. I think really it was the culmination of all these different models that reached a viral moment, really got to the masses. I would characterize the consensus as cautiously optimistic, I think there's not so much pessimism around AI as a technology anymore. I think more than like optimism. It's kind of gotten to a point where people are accepting that this is an inevitability. Now, what do we do with this inevitability? You know, different folks have different levels of bullishness on where this technology can take us or what the potential harms and risks of it are. But for the most part, people seem to be optimistic that we still have time. It's still kind of in our hands to kind of control the destiny that this new AI paradigm shift brings.
I think the way to look at this is if Steve Jobs said that, you know, the phone was a bicycle for the mind, this technology is really a rocket ship for the mind. The most exciting application, I think, of this generative AI is with what we're building, allowing humans to communicate visually. So you can take what's in your mind and create it almost instantly, whereas before it would have taken days or months even for skilled individuals to do that, be it art or PowerPoint or whatever else. I think we've also seen the impact of this also emerge in other sectors such as education, where students are now using it to help with their homework structuring or writing. And I think we'll see it across everything, whereby again, anything you can imagine, you'll be able to create now. At Stability, our differential is that we are open source, so we release our models, so there's an amazing community that's built around it. If you look at popularity on the code base, it's outstripped things like Bitcoin and Ethereum in a few months, what took them 10 years. The types of applications that we're seeing are largely around basic creativity at the moment, but now they are extending into combining these things to create video game assets, to create artwork of various types, to create new textures and things like that, to extend the capabilities of creators and to make more people creators.
I think where it goes from here, I think we'll see more and more business workflow use cases. Definitely expect to see these big tech companies like Microsoft and Google that are building some of these models and kind of working with companies like OpenAI on these models to start integrating them more deeply into some of the existing software we know. So for example, we could expect to see generative AI use cases in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Outlook, Google Docs, stuff like that. I think one of the open questions remains, are we going to see like an entirely new wave of AI native applications kind of become a whole new generation of software tools that people use? Or will it be kind of the existing options that are able to integrate this AI faster and stay ahead of the curve? For example, Adobe putting this AI into Photoshop versus an entirely new like AI powered photo editor coming about.
Speaking to Bill Gates about AI, I was honestly a little surprised just how excited he was. I asked him, how does this compare to previous technological cycles like the rise of the PC, or the PC with, graphics interfaces that allow us to play games and do a lot more, graphically inclined things on computers, or even the internet itself. And Bill said that he thinks this is one of the 4 big technological changes of his lifetime. And he said that he thinks AI will deservedly be the hottest topic of this year. Overall, I would say Bill Gates was optimistic about the impact that these AI tools could have, particularly in the developing world where he spends a lot of his thoughts with his foundation. He was thinking about how in Africa, some people may not have access to human doctors. You can do a lot as a foundation to try to get doctors to that place or train new doctors. But an AI tool that could answer some basic medical questions could fill a need without challenging doctors' professions. Similarly, he was thinking in, lower income neighborhoods here at home in the US. There might be some math tutoring or basic homework support or teaching support that a tool like this could use for students who don't have access to human tutors or don't have a lot of time with a teacher.
So with AI, you can do existing use cases better than before, right? So you can improve search. For example, you can improve moderation in social networks. You can improve communication by adding virtual backgrounds, for example, to this video. You can also create completely new use cases that were just not possible before, right? You can generate image from text. You can generate 3D from text. You can recognize voice and translate that. You can create better conversational AI. So it really opens up a new range of possibilities. The same way the previous generation of technology created the ability for machines to calculate better or to retrieve information better with search engine. There's a whole range of new use cases that weren't possible before that are now made possible by machine learning. The hype that we're seeing now is just a catch-up on the previous wave of usage. This is very different, for example, than crypto, where you had a lot of hype, but very little usage. I think it's quite sustainable. And as we see more use cases, more usage, more companies investing on the topic in 2023, hopefully it's going to become more and more of a mainstream topic and more central topic. What we want is for everyone to understand AI, understand what it can do, what it can't do, some of the challenges associated with it. For example, biases are a big challenge for AI systems today. We want everyone to, understand that so that they can, help us mitigate some of the risk and make sure it doesn't create more challenges.
So there are a number of issues that fall into different categories that still need to be resolved with this AI. As flashy and exciting as some of this new technology is, it's still prone to errors and mistakes. AI practitioners call it like hallucination, where you might ask OpenAI's ChatGPT a basic math problem and it will very confidently give you an answer, but it turns out the answer is completely wrong. That could, in a business capacity, hurt a business if they're kind of using inaccurate information, taking it at face value. Beyond that, there are kind of more deeper ethical concerns that have not been addressed. One of them being the copyright and IP around this new AI. The way that this generative AI is possible is these companies have trained their AI models on just massive quantities of data, and a lot of that data is pulled from the internet, So take an example like Stable Diffusion, which is trained on millions and millions and millions of images around the internet.
Stability AI, which is one of the companies that we write about in our coverage and is behind Stable Diffusion, they've been sued recently by Getty Images, which is alleging that they used millions of Getty's photos to allegedly train the models without paying Getty a dime for their work. There's also a lawsuit going on against OpenAI, Microsoft, and GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, from programmers who believe that the code that you can get, which is usable, it's not perfect, but it can actually save time for some programmers today, that code comes from programmers who similarly were not compensated for their work.
The rate of change that I expect that we're going to be seeing over the next few years makes me concerned that we are not going to be ready for what's coming next. And yes, we're better at the issues from 10 years ago, but we still haven't even solved the problems that have been caused by the old transformation where ranking systems sort of reshaped our society. Right now, there's two main sort of camps within the tech world in terms of how we're going to govern this technology. And one is we're just going to give everyone the power as an individual to do whatever they want with it. And the other is that the tech companies themselves will decide what you can do. And both of those don't seem really great. Like, yes, it's nice for us to have individual power, but if everyone has the power to mess with democracy, if everyone has the power to harass others, to extort others, to generate scams quickly on demand, like that maybe isn't really good for the world. There's a question of what else is there, right? And that is what democracy tries to do. It's can we take that question of how this technology should impact society and bring it to a process where those decisions are being really considered in terms of their impacts. But the challenge is that our current democratic systems are frankly too slow, and the AI advances are both incredibly quick and they're global. One of the most terrifying and in many ways exciting applications of generative AI is to copy our voices. That's incredibly useful for translating across languages. So you can have you just speaking in any language and it really sounds like you. But the downside there is someone can use that same technology to just copy your voice saying anything they want. We had companies in the space that were really responsible, as well as one could be, and they had a lot of safeguards to make it so that it was really hard to copy someone's voice without their consent. But that all changed very recently when a number of companies just came out without doing that. it's sort of like you're lowering the bar for responsibility because these new entrants are coming in because it's cheaper to not build in that extra tech and it makes it easier to use. And so we can't live in a world where people keep undercutting those responsibility practices. There is real risk that we are moving toward a world where people just don't have any sense of what is real. And they just sort of give up on that. And we've already seen that, obviously, in many parts of the world, the sort of what I've been calling reality apathy. That is not the ingredient that we need if we want to have functional society, functional democracy. Like, society is built on trust. Economics is built on trust. Politics is built on trust. And we get into a really dark place when we don't know what we can believe.
I think it's very difficult to see where this AI will not impact anywhere that a human and a computer interface, from better chatbots to the whole of the media industry changing to create faster, better output, and even areas like education and healthcare, augmenting human potential in these areas. It's hard keeping up to date with what generative AI looks like next week, let alone 1 year or 5 years, but I think in the next few years we're going to see video, we're going to see audio, 3D, the ability to really create any world you can imagine. And I think that will be amazing. I think we'll see it in areas like education, healthcare, and others, really helping and enhancing our ability to aid people. And I think that's going to be great to see because it can integrate into existing systems, unlike other things like maybe the metaverse or Web3 that always created their own systems and there was never really immediate value for.
A couple things that have shocked me about AI as I've gotten to know this space. One is that I feel like we're not all as unique as we think we are. These tools are pretty good at predicting what an email to reject a PR pitch looks like. Or right back at me, the kind of way to send a PR pitch to someone like Alex the reporter. That kind of communication is actually pretty well predicted. And so I think that we're going to see these AI tools, being useful there much earlier than I would have guessed. Sam Altman declined to be photographed for our Forbes story. We did photograph Greg Brockman and a couple other leading entrepreneurs in this space. But for Sam, we thought it would be really fitting to use his own tools to generate an image of himself. So we put into a prompt in OpenAI's image generating tool called DALL-E that said, Sam Altman on the cover of Forbes. We got some weird ones back, including a cover of sort of a blurry-faced, uncanny valley, Sam Altman-like person holding a cover of a magazine like Forbes with the same image of blurry Sam Altman. We've already seen some media companies starting to explore how to use these AI tools themselves, some elegantly, some actually getting in trouble for publishing stories written by an AI tool and not disclosing it right away. I think this is a debate that's going to happen across the media landscape. For someone like me, I'm actually not concerned. I do believe that just like using an iPhone or a transcription tool or other pieces of technology in my job, I'll be using AI to do my work better. If the AI can replace my work, then I don't think I'm doing a good job.
I think our sense talking to these founders, these investors, is that a lot of the coolest applications that are going to come out of this, AI wave haven't even been invented yet, maybe haven't even been imagined yet. That said, it seems like, for the most part, starting out, where this AI is going to be applied is in some of the more boring places, some of the more busy workplaces. How do we integrate this AI into our basic business workflow? So I think you're starting to see kind of consumer behaviors change. Students, for example, are already kind of using ChatGPT to generate essays for them. Some artists are using models like Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, or OpenAI's DALL-E to help them create works of art.
I think because machine learning is such a different paradigm as typical software, there's going to be like a flock, like a wave of AI, ML native startups that are going to do things, build products 100 times better than the incumbents who have not been able to build machine learning the same way. So this is very exciting because I think we really have the opportunity to change the paradigm completely and make emerge a whole group of newcomers and new companies that are going to be able to do things differently.
What we can do is you can use sort of new forms of democratic processes and this is what I've been calling sort of platform democracy or AI democracy, to ask a sort of representative selection of the global population. Like, how should this technology be used? How should it be deployed? It sounds crazy to say this, but there already are pilots of this sort of global process. And the reason why you need it to be global is because this technology affects everyone. It creates legitimacy. It makes it really, really hard for companies to then be like, oh, we're democratizing this technology, when really what they mean is we're giving everyone the ability to just like mess with everything. That isn't what a democratic process, that isn't what considered deliberation would have led to if you had the people who are being impacted by that technology in the room. We need our AI systems to not just be optimizing for engagement, as we've seen with things like Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, but for the sort of the human values that actually support society and support democracy. And a big part of that is sort of not optimizing for division, which is what comes naturally out of those algorithms in many cases. And so a lot of my work recently has been around how can we instead optimize for bridging divides, making conflict productive as opposed to destructive. So I think that is absolutely core to bake in from the beginning, because we've seen what happens to society when systems that billions of people are using every day are really optimizing for division, and it isn't pretty.
So as you can see, folks, this thing is going on now. So much that has happened in what we're seeing today is a continuation of things that were set up 3 to 4 years ago. A lot of us just heard about OpenAI, but it's not a new baby. This company was a not-for-profit, switched to a for-profit. Companies are jumping in.
Guest, solutions, insights. Get connected now.
Okay, so as we get ready to close this issue out, I want to definitely mention that we've got some great information on the website. Particularly, I want you to give a look at the 101 ChatGPT and AI resources. I've got a blog post on normbondmarkets.com. Go to the site, check out the 101 ChatGPT and AI resources for entrepreneurs, professionals, and busy business owners. Spent a lot of time, many months, in fact, looking and researching and using a lot of these various resources. I compiled them all into that post and the list that you'll find, 101 resources, for you to use, to grow, to expand, and to prosper as we dig and move further into what's happening in the world of technology, digital marketing, which are now being really powered by AI and machine learning and deep learning tools.
We run our city over here, that's how we do it, man. Don't stop, Bangkok, Thailand. It's the Bond Report with your host, Norm Bond. Follow Norm Bond on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and wherever social media is found. Let's go!